To continue this conversation, let's bring back Alan Dershowitz, not only the professor of constitutional law at Harvard, but a noted attorney in his own right. Alan, that headline about the Mexican consulate sending a mobile unit to register American voters, that borders on the surreal.
It is. That's ridiculous. Americans vote in American elections. Mexicans should not try to influence American elections. Americans should not try to influence Mexican elections. We have enough on our plate to keep us busy with each voter voting in his own election. It's absurd, and it shouldn't be permitted.
Well, let's go the next step with this, counselor. It would appear to me that this is an effort to try to register those who should not be registered for purposes of getting rid of guys like Governor Scott Walker. Is that a fair assumption?
No, I think it's there's no evidence that they're trying to register people who should not be registered. I think what they're trying to do is get people who should be registered to register and to vote. That is a legitimate function.
Not a legitimate function of a foreign government, sir. Not a legitimate function of a foreign government.
Oh, no, absolutely not. I'm saying it's perfectly okay to try to get unregistered voters to register and to vote, but not from a foreign country. Absolutely not. And we have laws against that. We have laws prohibiting contributions from foreign countries, and I think it would be perfectly legitimate to have a law saying that representatives of foreign countries shouldn't be in the process of registering people to vote. Now, it becomes a harder First Amendment question if you say a Mexican consulate gets up and makes a speech somewhere and saying it would be good for Latinos to vote for a particular candidate. I don't think you can stop them from doing that, though it's not good form.
Well, not only is it not good form, it's not good politics. I saw that in a special congressional election out in San Diego when something was said by a nominee of one party ultimately lost the election. Let me return to what General Holder was talking about as the U.S. Supreme Court recently upheld a request by Ohio Republicans to reduce the number of days voters can cast ballots ahead of Election Day. General Holder says that's a major step backwards. How will this affect a key state like Ohio?
Well, we're seeing a major change. When I was growing up, Election Day was Election Day. You either voted on Election Day or you didn't vote. Now, of course, we've seen in many states ability to vote way in advance, and you see sometimes a lot of votes cast way in advance. It used to be done only for people serving in the military or in the diplomatic corps. It's a hard question. It's hard to know whether we're better off with lots and lots of early voting, which really negates much of the campaigning, or we're better off keeping it the way it was traditionally, that you vote on Election Day. It's a hard question. I don't see it so much as a point of principle. I see it as a point of pragmatism. You want to get the most people out to the polls to vote. On the other hand, Election Day as Election Day has some virtue.
Well, yes, the challenge is convenience, connivance comes into play, the temptation for fraud, voting by mail, absentee voting. There are some challenges, and there's always a balance to try to strike. Let me turn to another topic in constitutional law. Since the Supreme Court convened this week, first Monday in October, and said, well, essentially, it had decided not to decide. How do you interpret what that means on the topic of same-sex marriage?
It's the most interesting decision the Supreme Court has made in a long time, the decision not to decide. First of all you need is 4 votes to get certiorari. So it means that the 4 justices who would vote against gay marriage did not vote to grant review in this case. At least one of them didn't vote to grant review, because I think they know that Justice Kennedy would vote in their favor. So I think both sides, the majority who would vote now in favor of gay marriage and the minority that would vote against it, realize that they're both better off kicking the can down the road and postponing this thing. I
love that. You know what I love about this, Alan? There you are, the learned attorney, the one-time Harvard Law School professor, and you use a great expression that probably is not going to show up in an opinion, kicking the can down the road. But for all intents and purposes, that's what happened. Hey, Alan, we appreciate your time as we look both nationally and internationally at some key issues. And in that international vein, your new ebook, Terror Tunnels, the case for Israel's just war against Hamas. Alan Dershowitz, thanks again so much for your time.
Thank you.
And America's Forum will continue right after this.